They look like baby. That's what my cousin. It's really interesting. I'm like, actually, I remember I was in the car with my cousin one time, and all of his friends treat him as white, right? And so he can't pronounce his last name. I love the dude, but he can't pronounce his last name. And so we're in the back of the car, like someone of his friend's dad is driving us, and the guy suddenly goes, "Chris, I think you're gonna like this. I got a song for you." And the dude's name was Yale, by the way. And he turns on this like like fucking flamenco music and shit. And he's like, right? And I was so good. I mean, I did like it, but I was like, I was confused by it. And then that's when I was like, oh, my cousin and I don't live in the same thing. And I remember. It was a very good song.
Okay, well, back to you were saying super white.
So, I mean, not super.
No, I'm just saying, like, no, speaking of, like, this is my bracelet. So, yeah. So,
I have that bracelet right here.
I feel like you can't get even whiter than redheaded. It's, like, super, even crazier. But also minority. Like, supposedly the smallest minority is what people say. But I'm like, yeah, but we don't have any privilege problems at the moment, you know. Anyway, so I'm Greg, white, male, English is my first language. I went to NYU for my grad school, so yeah, so that screwed up the whole private school. My mom wanted me to go to a private school for high school, and my dad was like, absolutely not, because he had gone to private school and he felt like that
makes you a pussy?
Yeah, well, basically, yeah. I think, yeah, he was not into it. He didn't want to have, but he also sort of, I think, grew up rather privileged and tried to, eschew all that, and so that was part of it. And then I definitely see myself represented. In fact, someone even said, I saw No, and I was like, wait, at the very end of the movie, I'm like, everyone's white. And someone was like, you even noticed that, Greg? And I was like, yeah. There's a problem when I even noticed that everyone's white in the movie. So that's
the accent they all spoke in Aramaic, isn't that British accent?
Yeah, I liked that the family, the main family, which were these subsistent farmers, had this aristocratic British accent, and then the rest of the people that supposedly had this advanced industrial society, they all spoke like they were working class London or something. Which did anyone else? I don't know what that was. It's interesting to see that movie. Anyways, I'm trying to remember. I don't have a good defining story. I just remember really clearly in preschool going to a birthday party with I get a friend of mine from preschool who was black, and not thinking anything about that, but in retrospect remembering that and being like, oh, I wasn't aware of that at that time, that there was something different, or there was some privilege involved. And I just remember being very, I wasn't conscious of race at all at that time. I remember thinking back when I was conscious of it to that time and thinking I wasn't I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, which is not the most diverse area, but our city was sort of my middle school had there was a big Vietnamese population. There was also a lot of Russians at one point, so. But the only thing I remember privilege-wise was much more economic, and it was in middle school when we all went on this Washington, D.C. trip. And to go on the trip, you had to, you either could just your parents could just pay for it, or you could raise money by selling soap products. Does anyone do this kind of thing? And I got huge flack from my friends at the time, who were always mocking me anyways for various reasons. Yeah, well, I don't know. It was that, and then. But I remember. Yeah, that occasionally happened. The whole school also could see through my sexuality, which I was not aware of at the time. So there was that issue. Yeah, doesn't help when your name rhymes with other things. So, anyways, but it was a big deal that they had to sell soap and I didn't sell the soap. And I think they sold one bottle of soap, and then I didn't hear the end of it of everything's handed to you. It was the big thing, and that stuck with me forever. I still have hang-ups about that, feeling I have to earn everything and have earned something myself. So, but that's really the privilege thing is to do with selling soap to get to Washington D.C. So.
I'll buy some stuff.
I'll sell you now. I'll sell.
In high school, I went to a very private college prep school in like the outskirts of Ohio on a farm, and it was very expensive, and you could get a scholarship, but it wasn't that common, so it was mostly white kids. There was maybe like in each grade 5 or 6 black kids, and we had kind of areas where we could hang out when we were having free periods or whatever, and we had this lobby where they kind of had a freshman side, and then they had a junior side and a sophomore side, and the seniors kind of were able to sit in a whole separate area, but then there was also an area called the black benches, where all the black kids sat, and the black kids called them the black benches, and the white kids called them the black benches, and it was just like totally normal in our high school to have that, and I guess I didn't really realize how weird it was until I graduated and kind of thought about the fact that as a school we like had made this whole separate place for the black kids to sit, and that they referred to them as black benches, and we did too, and it just, looking back on that, seems like, even though that they got into the same private school and were just as smart and just as privileged as the rest of us, it was kind of like we still segregated them to a different place in the school, which seems really sad.
Against white privilege, it's not enough for white privilege. My name is Isa, and my band, I am sort of white. I am white. My dad is from North Africa, so while I do identify myself as white, there's always been like a ton of diversity, and me recognizing that I wasn't like 100% like the rest of my friends and my family. I've never been to private school. I'm also a senior in high school, so I guess I'm going to a private college, so soon that won't be necessarily true. English is my first language, and I do see myself represented in media and society. I don't really have a specific memory of when I realized that that I was different from other people, and that I grew up in North Bergen. I went until kindergarten, and my neighbors were from Dominican Republic, and I hung out with them all the time. And we went to the park, and it was like a super mixed neighborhood. And then after kindergarten, my parents moved my family to Ridgewood, which is like a super wealthy, white, like very white neighborhood. And I went through second grade or first grade to 12th grade in Ridgewood, and I guess it was like when I started high school that I really started to become aware of the fact that there's a very large percentage of African Americans. My town is pretty much white and Asian. There's a lot of like very high percentage of white and Asian kids in my high school. And I really I don't have any, that has to be the first time that I really realized that my town was like pretty much just white kids, was like high school, and noticing that there was one table at lunch that had the black kids at it, and that was it.
Good, is this a good place to stop? So let's reconvene.